The water was the color of rich, disturbed earth. It flowed, boundless and heavy, carrying the dust of 1,000 distant hills, the dark topsoil of the prairie, the silt of the northern forests, the ancient clay of the Appalachians. This was the great, churning heart of the continent, the American bottom, a floodplain so vast and flat that the sky seemed twice as tall and the river a god made manifest. In the year of the rising sun, 700 AD, or what the scattered peoples of this land called the time of the emerging dawn, the great rivers convened. The Mississippi, a solemn titan flowing south, the Missouri, a wild, tumultuous creature roaring in from the west, and the Illinois, a quieter sister, whispering secrets from the north. They met not in a single defined point, but in a sprawling, low-lying landscape of cypress swamps, willow thickets, and prairies that stretched for over 100 miles. The air here was thick with the scent of wet earth and the sharp, bright smell of blooming wild onion. For generations, the people of the late woodland period had lived here as small, self-sufficient communities. They were skilled potters, deft weavers of baskets, and patient hunters. Their villages were small clusters of thatched oval houses, moving seasonally as the land dictated, following the deer, the bear, and the subtle rhythms of the wild rice harvest. Their lives were simple, yet governed by an immense and ancient respect for the spirits of the river, the sky, and the fertile mud that clung to their toes after the spring flood. One such village was simply called Oka, meaning the water place, settled on a slight rise just east of the main river channel. Its people, the ancestors of the Cahokians, were modest. They knew the rhythms of the land intimately. They understood the river's promise, the rich, revitalized soil left behind after the waters receded, and its danger, the sudden, terrifying rise that could sweep away a lifetime's work. In this place of profound meeting, of three waters and endless earth, a change was beginning to stir, a quiet, insistent call that would eventually summon a people to greatness. The seed of the sun giver. The change began not with a flood or a war, but with a seed, the grain of maize or corn. For centuries, maize had been a minor crop in the American bottom. It was a sturdy plant, but it did not yet hold the central place in their diet that wild harvests and hunting did. But as the 8th century dawned, something was different. New varieties of maize, hardier and more productive, began to spread up the great waterways. These varieties were easier to store, yielded more grain per stalk, and most crucially, thrived in the wide, sun-drenched floodplains. For a young man named Hona, growing the sun-giver's crop became a quiet obsession. Hona was not a chief or a warrior. He was a husband and farmer, his hands perpetually stained dark from the earth. He watched the cycles of the moon, the shifting slant of the sun, and the subtle changes in the river's height. One year, Hona disregarded the traditional planting spots near the forest line, and instead cleared a massive plot in the deepest, blackest soil of the American bottom. His elders warned him, "The river is a trickster, Hona. It will claim the best soil when the sky grows angry." But Hona, driven by a vision of abundance, persisted. When the fall harvest arrived, his field was a miracle. The stalk stood twice as tall as a man, the ears fat and golden, countless beyond easy counting. The yield was so great it required every man, woman, and child in Oka to haul it back to the storage pits. That harvest changed everything. It meant the people did not have to range as far or move as often. It meant the children would not go hungry in the lean month of late winter. It meant, for the first time, that the people of Oka had surplus. They had time. This abundance was the first quiet tremor that would lead to the foundation of the city. The gathering, a vision of permanence. The successful cultivation of large-scale maize meant that the small, dispersed settlements of the American Bottom, places like Oka and the villages of the Tamaroa and Cahokian clans, began to draw closer together. They were no longer tiny islands in a vast wilderness. They were becoming centers of a stable, food-rich landscape. The shift was gradual but profound. Instead of temporary, quick-built homes, people started building for permanence. The rough, oval structures gave way to rectangular houses, built with more care. Strong cedar posts sunk deep into the ground, walls woven with cane and plaster, wattle and daub, and solid, thatched roofs. These homes were designed to last a generation, not a season. This consolidation was driven not just by food, but by a changing spiritual need. As the settlements grew, the ceremonies and rituals needed a central, shared space, a focal point for the gratitude and supplication offered to the powerful forces of the sun, the water, and the fertile mud that clung to their toes after the spring flood. One such village was simply called Kili. The seeker became the voice of this need. Kili spoke of a shared destiny, of a need to honor the power of the confluence with a structure worthy of the gods. He spoke of a central fire, a place where the smoke of all the surrounding settlements could rise as one offering. The rivers meet and make a promise of life, Kili told the Council of Elders. We must honor that promise. We must give the spirits a great seat, a place where their power can pool and strengthen our people. The elders listened. The concept was terrifying in its ambition, but the sight of the bursting storage pits was persuasive. Hona, the farmer, was among the loudest voices of support. A bountiful harvest meant labor could be diverted from hunting and gathering to building.
The first earthwork, the seed of the mound. The chosen spot was a low, natural ridge, sheltered slightly from the most violent floods, but still commanding a view of the river bottom, a place of balance between the wildness of the rivers and the safety of the ridge. The first earthwork was not a grand pyramid, but a simple, low rectangular platform. It was built by hand, basket by basket. The work was arduous. The people of Oka and their neighbors dug clay and soil from shallow pits nearby, which would later become the borrow pits that pockmarked the landscape. They loaded the wet, heavy earth into woven baskets. A single basket of earth weighed nearly 40 pounds. They carried these baskets on their backs, up the gentle slope, and dumped them in the prescribed area. It was a communal act, a powerful exercise in unity. As they worked, they sang rhythmic, repetitive songs to mark the passage of the sun and to synchronize the work of dozens of workers. Earth to the sky, sun to the maize, the river gives, we build the seat. The platform rose slowly over the course of 3 seasons. When finished, it was perhaps 10 feet high, flat-topped, and perfectly oriented along the cardinal directions, a subtle nod to the astronomical knowledge they already possessed. On top of this platform, they erected a new, large cedar lodge. This was the ceremonial house, the first visible, permanent sign that the scattered settlements were consolidating their will, their labor, and their faith into a single place. This first small mound was the birth cry of Cahokia, though no one called it that yet. It was the moment they transitioned from living on the land to deliberately shaping the land. The call of the American bottom. News of the great maize harvests and the powerful, permanent ceremonial structure spread rapidly along the waterways. The Mississippi River was not a barrier, it was a highway. Canoes of hollowed-out cypress logs and sturdy birch bark traveled north to the Great Lakes, south toward the Gulf, and west up the Missouri. In the small settlements of the Ohio Valley, people heard the stories. A place where the 3 great rivers give their bounty, where the corn grows tall enough to hide a man on horseback, and where the people are building a house for the sun on a platform of earth. This was not a king demanding tribute. It was the land itself issuing an invitation of plenty. The period from 750 AD to 900 AD saw a slow but steady influx of new settlers. The Great Migration was not a single dramatic march, but a constant, thin stream of families arriving on the banks of the confluence. They came seeking opportunity, stability, and the community of the burgeoning Central Fire. A family of skilled potters from the north arrived, bringing new techniques for fire-hardened clay. A group of shellfishers from the Gulf Coast came, their canoes laden with beautiful white marine shells that would become ceremonial currency. A clan of builders from the west arrived, with knowledge of stronger, load-bearing wood construction. The simple fact was that the American bottom could feed them all. The rich soil, regularly replenished by the rivers, was inexhaustible, and the new strains of maize made famine a distant memory. The population of the region swelled dramatically. What were once scattered settlements became denser residential clusters surrounding the first Earth platform. A new architecture of community. By 850 AD, the settlement was becoming too large for the casual, consensus-based governance of the old elders. The work was too great, the population too diverse, and the resources too valuable to be managed by a simple village council. The need for organized labor to clear more fields, to dig more drainage ditches to manage the marshy environment, and to build more substantial structures gave rise to a new type of leader. This was the planner chief. The planner chief was not merely the strongest warrior or the oldest man. He was the one who could organize. He knew how to measure the land, how to predict the river's rise, and critically, how to motivate hundreds of people to carry baskets of earth day after day for years. This new leadership was symbolized by a second, larger building project. The original platform was expanded, its base widened, and its height raised. It became clear that this was not merely a house for the spirits, but a residence for the chief, a physical manifestation of his elevated status and his connection to the powerful forces they worshipped. The chief's house now stood on a commanding height, looking out over the fast-growing town. Below him, the houses were clustered into orderly neighborhoods, oriented around open plazas that would soon become spaces for games, markets, and public ceremonies. The people were learning to live in close proximity, trading the isolation of the forest for the dynamism and protection of community. The air buzzed with a new sound, the organized rhythm of work, the chatter of trade, and the constant sound of digging. The spirit of the Great Migration had settled, and in its place, the raw, ambitious heart of North America's first true city was beginning to beat. They were no longer simply the people of Oka. They were the people of the Great Center, the dwellers of the American bottom, laying the foundation, one basket of mud at a time, for the great mound city that future generations would call Cahokia. The promise of the rivers had been answered, and the work of destiny had just begun.